Good afternoon, everybody who is here in Dubai and people is following us from streaming. And we are here to present the SHARE project. Sustainability, Health and Agriculture is the agri-food model of Emilia-Romagna region from farm to fork. We are here to present some selected projects of Emilia-Romagna and especially from the 4 University of Emilia-Romagna, University of Parma, University of Modena Reggio Emilia, University of Bologna and University of Ferrara. We are here to present not only research project but also some educational courses of the university. I want to first of all thank Emilia-Romagna region for the support, but also Padiglione Italia for the technical and not only technical support here in Dubai. Our first researcher is Dr. Giacomo Ferretti from University of Bologna. University of Ferrara, and is here to present the Zeoliva project.
Yes, thank you very much, Francesca, for the introduction. Thank you. I'm Giacomo Ferretti from the University of Ferrara, and it is really a pleasure for me to be here in Dubai at the Italian pavilion to present the research activity that we are carrying on at our university with my team. And yes, thanks to everyone involved in the organization of this event. And well, today my presentation will focus on what we are doing with our team with these very particular minerals that are called zeolites for the environmental protection, the improvement of soil quality and the pest control. In my presentation, I will just give a first overview on the problems we aim to face with our research. Then I will give you an explanation on what is the material we are using, because we are geologists, but maybe someone may know already this material, but maybe someone not. Then I will tell you what is our expertise, what we have done in the last 10 years of research with this material. And then I will also talk and tell you what we are doing in the framework of the project Zeoliva, that is a project financed by the MIPAF, the Italian Ministry for Agricultural Policies, Forestry and Food Policies. And yes, so I can go to the next slide. Okay, as a very first thing, I want to show you this map that, in my opinion, it is a really sad map, because this map is showing us the degradation state of the soil on planet Earth. And degradation means loss of the soil, of the capacity of the soil to produce ecosystem services, and one of the most important ecosystem services is the food production. So basically, by losing fertility of our soil, so degrading by degradation of our soil, that is also caused by intensive over-exploitation of our soil, means also loss of the capacity to produce food. And everybody knows that the world population, I mean, all the models are telling us that the world population will increase in the following years. So if the production capacity, the food production capacity is decreasing, this is a very serious problem that we need to face immediately. And we cannot just simply solve this problem by saying, okay, we can just cultivate more lands, because there is no more space for cultivating other lands. And also we cannot say, okay, just make a more intensive production, because using intensive systems for agriculture means increasing degradation of soils. So we need to improve the food production on already cultivated land, but by using efficient and sustainable practice that allow us to produce food but also protect the environment. So one of the problems that we are working on at our team is the scarce efficiency of the nitrogen-based fertilizers. You know, nitrogen is a very important element. It is at the base of life. So nitrogen is in protein, DNA, amino acid, and so on. Plants, animals need nitrogen, and humans are adding nitrogen to soil for increasing the crop production in centuries. So the problem is that on a global estimation, more than 50% of the nitrogen we add in the soil is not going actually to the plant. It's going in the water system, like in the groundwater, in the surface water, and it is causing eutrophication. Everybody know what is eutrophication. And it is also going in the atmosphere as greenhouse gases or harmful gases, thus contributing to the climate change. Just think that N2O, that is a very powerful greenhouse gases, is 300 times more powerful than the CO2 in terms of global warming potential. And it is mainly emitted by agricultural management, soil agricultural management, fertilizers, and so on. Another very serious problem is the large use of pesticides. Pesticides are used for pest control, and pesticides basically are poisons, so they kill the pests, but also other organisms, so they impair the soil biodiversity and the ecosystem. So, and also pose a risk to human health. We don't want to eat poisons, in our food. So we need to find efficient methodologies that help us to increase this 50% to a higher level, and also to reduce the use of pesticides. So why natural zeolites? Why we are studying this material? First of all, I bet that every one of you already met zeolite in your life, even if you don't know what are zeolites. Because nowadays, zeolites are used everywhere, almost everywhere, in a lot of industrial sector, from oil industry, wastewater treatment, gas separation, heat exchange, cosmesis, animal food industry, cultivation substrate, fertilizers. So zeolites are really used in a lot of industrial sector, but let's see why. Zeolites are minerals, and here you understand why I'm a geologist, so I'm studying minerals and application of minerals to the soil. And zeolites are a family of minerals. They can be natural zeolites, so they can be found in rock, like volcanic tuff, but they can also be made in the laboratories by synthesis. We are working with natural zeolites. These minerals are very particular because you have to imagine that they are structured in a way like with a three-dimensional structure made of linked atoms of silicon, aluminum, and oxygen. And this three-dimensional structure is delimiting open cavities and channels in the form in which gas molecules like water and cations, positive charged molecules, and gases can be reversibly exchanged with the surrounding environment. In a very simplified way, you can imagine zeolite as a sort of sponge. So they get ions and water and gases from the surrounding environment, and they can release them after a certain amount of time when the conditions are changing. So it is really immediate to understand why this property is very important in a lot of application. And we are exploiting them in agriculture because this molecule, the ammonium, so NH4+, it is a cation, it has a really good affinity, the perfect size for some types of zeolites, so we can influence the dynamic of these molecules with these minerals. And these molecules, it can be found in like animal manure that is used for fertilization purposes, and also it is the main molecules formed after most of fertilizer hydrolysis in the soil. Like also urea is then changing to ammonium, transforming to ammonium very soon. So now I give you an overview of what we are doing with these minerals since almost 10 years ago. We started using zeolite for recycling nitrogen from the animal manure. You know, there are a lot of intensive breeding, not only in Italy, but in all the world. And this manure, especially the liquid fraction of the manure, contains a lot of ammonium nitrogen. And it is the management of this material is really a serious procedures, because you need to manage properly, because it can be very dangerous for the environment, and also there can be a lot of gaseous emission in the form of ammonia during the storage process. And an important process is to try to transform the nitrogen in this very mobile form into a slow release form that is able to supply this nitrogen slowly to the soil in the form of a slow release fertilizer. So we are getting out the ammoniacal nitrogen from the slurry, and we are storing it inside the mineral crystal lattice in order to release it slowly in the soil. So with this process, we have two different materials at the end, one enriched minerals, a nitrogen enriched mineral that we can use as soil amendment, and a nitrogen depleted animal liquid manure that has a very low environmental impact. And during the years, we patented some method and also some machineries, and nowadays we have some working treatment plants already built in Italy, and with this method we can obtain a programmable removal of nitrogen by more than 90% of removal with a completely natural process using this kind of material. Another application is the use as soil amendment. As I just told you, soil amendment means something that can improve the quality, the soil quality. And so if we add a mineral to the soil that has a very high cation exchange capacity, water holding capacity, we are basically improving the capacity of the soil to retain nutrients and water. So if we are able to improve the retention of nitrogen, so we can improve also the efficiency of the fertilizers, because the plants have more time for exploiting this nitrogen pool in the soil. And during these years, sorry, I forgot to tell you that this research started with a European Life project. It's called Zeolife, and in the framework of this project, we performed a lot of researchers. I'm not just, I don't want to annoy you explaining everything, but the main result we obtained from this research were a decrease in gaseous emission from soil, like from ammoniacal nitrogen emission. We reduced it up to 60% in some condition. We reduced the nitrogen leaching, the nitrate leaching from soil because of this nitrogen retention capacity. We were able to constitute a long-term reserve of nitrogen from plant. We also used isotopes to study the path of the nitrogen from the soil to the plant. We were able to influence also the microbial community of the soil, because of course also the soil microorganisms are influenced by how the nitrogen is moving and the availability of nitrogen in the soil. And we also, this is another interesting aspect, we also use this material for mitigating the sodium problem, because also sodium can really fit in the channels of zeolite. And we use it for removing sodium from bad quality irrigation water. So if you live close to the coastal area, you may have problem from sea water intrusion. It can compromise your irrigation water. And so zeolites can also be used for reducing the so-called SAR index, which is the sodium absorption ratio. So you can improve at least the quality of your irrigation water. But the most important result is that we basically obtained a sort of paradox, because by increasing the efficiency of fertilizer, we were able to reduce the amount of fertilizer applied to the soil. But the crop yield was maintained, or in some of our experiments also was increased. And this is exactly a very good result on the basis of what we wanted to face. And another very important aspect is that if you reduce the amount of fertilizer, you are also reducing the amount of energy used for producing the fertilizers, because you need lesser fertilizer in an ideal system. So just think that for urea production, that is the most used fertilizer worldwide, also methane is used in the process of the Haber-Bosch process for producing urea, and methane is a non-renewable resources. So that is maybe produced by biofuel. That is for cultivating crop for biofuel, you need other fertilizer to fertilize the crop for produce. So it's really a very weird loop. And So basically, reducing the amount of fertilizer by just improving the soil properties, I think it's a really good result. The last use we are doing with zeolites is the use as for pest control. We are using very small-sized zeolites, micro-sized, to spray on the surface of the leaves and on the fruit in order to create a highly reactive barrier to protect the plant and the fruit from environmental stresses like heat or drought, and also to protect from pests. And finally, we arrive into the Ziliva project. That, of course, is the natural proceeding of all this long list of activities I have just showed you. And well, the project is aiming at improving the quality of soil and the protection from pests in olive growing. So we are now working on olive growing. And the project was funded in 2019, and it involves the collaboration of the University of Ferrara and the Institute of Bioeconomy of the National Research Council of Bologna. And well, in the Oliva, so we, of course, as a big aim, we want to improve the soil quality and agricultural sustainability in olive growing, but we aim at reducing fertilizer application to the soil and also to reduce the chemical pesticide use in olive growing. We want to reduce the infestation of the olive fruit fly, and we want to improve also, hopefully, the quality of the oil we are obtaining as a final product. In a very simple way, what is interesting for us is that we have two different experimentation in the framework of this project. We are using zeolites as foliar treatment in one experimentation, and we are using zeolites as soil amendment in another separate experimentation. The project is lasting 3 years. It started in 2019 and it will end half next year. And in this presentation, I will show you what some preliminary results of the first year of experimentation. So we are still obtaining data, elaborating data. So what you will see is a preliminary view of the results. So for the treatment, for the foliar treatment experimentation, we have two fields. One is in organic farming and one is in conventional farming. And basically we are testing different treatments. In the organic farming, we are testing natural zeolites versus ammonium-enriched zeolites as foliar treatment, and we are testing them in comparison with the conventional practices that are the use of chemical traps like spintor fly and spinosad. While in the conventional farming, we are testing the use of dimethoate, that it is a very powerful pesticide that was also recently banned by the European community. But there are some derogation because it is almost the only product it can be used. So some companies are still applying dimethoate. So we are testing a combined application of natural zeolites with dimethoate, in which we are reducing the use of dimethoate by 50%. So we are cutting by 50% the use of pesticide as a first step. So we will see how it works, and then we will decide what to do in the next experimentation. Versus a negative control, so a treatment in which we are not adding anything. For the zeolite soil amendment, we have just two treatments in 3 experimental fields. So we have 3 locations, and we are testing zeolite amended soil versus normal conventional agricultural practices. So no zeolite, 100% fertilizers versus zeolite amended soil and 50% of fertilizer. So we are cutting fertilization by 50%. And we see how the plant is developing, what is happening in the soil, a lot of nutrients, dynamics, fruit fly infestation, analysis of olives and oil. We are monitoring a lot of parameters. So what we see from the first years of experimentation was basically that in one side for the foliar treatment experimentation, there was a very low infestation of the fruit fly. So I cannot speculate too much about this, but in the other side there was a higher infestation. So consider we still have to make statistics on it and get data from 3 years, but from the first year of experimentation we see a really good response of the zeolite treatment, and also the zeolite in combination with dimethoate significantly reduced the percentage of experimentation. So this method was working in the first year. Also, the oil content in the olive was not significantly different between all the treatment in all the experimental fields, so we have not impaired the oil production of our orchard. The quality of this diagram is showing you the quality of the oils. So basically, the higher these values, this parameter are, the better the oil is. And here, still we need to do some statistic, but the worst oil is the no treatment oil, because there was a very high infestation level. And we see that it's not the treatment that is influencing the oil quality, but it's the percentage of infestation. And since zeolite treatment had a good result in terms of reducing the infestation, also the zeolite treatments tends to be the best quality, best oil in terms of flavor. Concerning the soil, what we've seen is that there is no difference in the nitrogen uptake of the plant from the soil. So also the plants were able to get enough nutrients even if we reduced the fertilization by 50%. We measured the nitrogen content of the leaves of each plant. We measured, we did agronomical measurement of the plant development. I'm not showing the result here now. And we also measured the nitrogen content in the soil, and there are no differences, so it means that everything was fine, even if we reduced the fertilization by 50%. Here are some pictures of our activities. There is the zeolite addition to soil. There is me trying to get some soil sample. The soil usually is really hard. I almost broke my back sometimes. There is a olive harvesting. This is my boss taking olives from the tree. And yes, other field pictures. The location of our field is in a really beautiful scenario in the Emilia-Romagna region. We are working in a different place. We have a field in Montiano, in Forlì-Cesena province. We have a field in Bertinoro, always in Forlì-Cesena. We have a field in Brisighella, in Ravenna province, and we have a field in San Lazzaro di Savena in Bologna province. So these are the location of all our experimental fields. Well, so by summarizing everything, with zeolite, with our research, we could contribute to recycling nitrogen from animal manure. We could improve at least a bit the soil quality. We could have an effect on protect from pests. We could reduce the nitrogen fertilizer input, reduce the chemical pesticide use, reduce the GHG emission, and reduce the nitrogen leaching, and also maintain to improve the crop yield. So all of these results are contributing to improve the agricultural sustainability, so also to protect the environment. I'm not saying that with zeolite we can save the world and just throwing zeolite everywhere we will solve all the problems, but with this method we are at least doing some steps ahead in developing innovative and sustainable solutions to improve the environmental quality and to protect the environment. So I want to thank my colleagues. This is my team of University of Ferrara. There is Professor Massimo Coltorti, is our supervisor. There is Barbara, there's me. There is Giulia and Valeria, two PhD students working with us. I really thank them a lot for all the work and all the support. And there is also Lucia and Annalisa from the CNR team that I really thank her for the professional work and support. So thanks a lot. These are our social media link. You can also visit our website. It's quite new. We are updating it because the project is still ongoing. If you have also any question, you can ask me directly or you can write to my mail. And well, thanks everybody.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giacomo. I don't know if we have some question from present of no, maybe not.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Giacomo.
Oh.
Again? Okay.
Yeah. Okay, just to, well, this material is, sorry, there is something, okay, with the microphone. Well, the zeolites are widespread in the world. So there are many countries that have zeolites, maybe not the same zeolite we are using, but there are many. And we made a calculation inside the first the Zero Life project I showed in my presentations, that with the query we were using, only the query we were using, that I forgot to say that the material we were using was a waste material for the query at that time. Only with that material we could amend all the agricultural soil of Emilia-Romagna region with one query. So, I mean, the material, there is a lot, and you can find zeolites on the market already. Now they are really commonly sold by a lot of companies, and so the scalability of this procedure is good. I mean, it can be used.
Okay.
What about the capacity of the soil to receive the zeolites all over Europe?
What do you mean for capacity?
With the accountability of the soil, capacity to capture the...
Well, if you mean to how we apply the zeolite to the soil and how they establish in the soil, you have to spread them and try to plough in a way to homogenize them, at least in the root zone of the plants, and they will stay there. They are really stable because they're geologic material, so they were formed millions of years ago, so they're really stable, long-term stability in the soil, so they can continue to do their work in the soil for a lot of time. If you add them to the soil, you don't have to replace it. You don't need to replace them. Maybe if you are using the nitrogen-enriched one, they may finish the nitrogen pool, but then after that they can do their normal cation exchange process. So they will trap new nitrogen from afterward fertilization and continue doing their work among the time. Hope to have answered your question.
Okay. Maybe we are done. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Giacomo. So, next project is from University di Modena Reggio Emilia. Okay, is Professor Lara Maestrello, and with the project Valori Bio.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all the organizers and to Region Emilia-Romagna. So today I will talk about insects, on how insects can help us in the view to help sustainability in the agri-food system. So my name is Lara Maestrello. I'm a professor of entomology at the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia, and I belong to the Interdepartmental Center Biogenetica. So we are well aware that we are having a problem with sustainability, and we are having this big issue with climate emergency. So we all know that the human population is increasing. We know that the consumption of energy is increasing. We also know that, unfortunately, the cover of trees is reducing a lot. But really what strikes me a lot is that we are having a huge increase in the per capita meat consumption, and in parallel we see a high increase in the ruminant livestock. And as a consequence, a huge increase in methane, a huge increase in carbon dioxide, not only due to agriculture, but really agriculture, and especially animal farming is really one of the main culprits of it. But really, if we want to focus on the per capita meat consumption, we see here the different type of, according to the different type of meat and fish sources, how the estimation is really increasing. And according to FAO, by 2050, the consumption is set to increase by 50 to 76%. However, the land area will not be enough to sustain all the livestock that we need in order to have all these meat and fishes. Therefore, also the feed consumption will increase by 70%. And unfortunately, we already see that the prices of this feed is increasing, and the availability of feed materials will decrease more and more. So, population is increasing. And here in this paper, we see how the different types of environmental pressure according to the different type of food group. So what really strikes us is that, so the first is 2010, and this one is the projection for 2050. So we see that on all the different parameters in terms of environmental pressures, we see that in red we see the animal product. So it's really huge compared to the other different type of food sources. So we need to switch. We need alternative protein sources. So, of course, dietary changes are needed. So we absolutely need to reduce meat consumption. This is really the first thing to do. And what if we still want to eat meat? Which kind of meat should we prefer? So according to this data, it should be probably better to switch from cattle and sheep towards pigs and poultry. But really, we need alternative protein sources. And among the possible alternatives, there is cultured meat, which is somehow very expensive. Legumes and other vegetable proteins, that's really okay. Mycoproteins, this is quite new, but still a lot of research needs to be done. Algae, micro and macroalgae. But I'm an entomologist, so we go forward with insects. Why insects? So according to this estimate, considering the total biomass on our Earth, of course, plants occupy most of it. You see the green part over there, and you see also that very small triangle over there. That small triangle are all the animals taken together. So if we split the triangle of animals, we see this figure where there are all the different animals. And you see this big part here, the red part, is arthropods. Who are arthropods? It's basically mainly insects on fresh water and on the land, and in the oceans, crustaceans. And then there are also myriapods, there are arachnids, and so on. But really, you see, the part of arthropods is huge. And if we want to see it in a different way, it is another statistics, we see that pretty much, considering the total animal biomass on land and fresh water, well, we see that 45% of it is occupied by insects, mainly ants and termites. They're very small, but there are many, many, many in the world, other insects and so on. So if we look at mammals, where there are all the human beings together with all the other animals, mammals just 5%, birds 2%, reptiles and amphibians just 1%. So ridiculous compared to the weight of insects in the world. So they're really the first in terms of animal biomass. And if we look in terms of biodiversity, the number of species, so we know that pretty much we know about 2 million of species of living organisms. And of all the living organisms, insects represent 53% of the species. So it's really a huge, huge percentage. So we can definitely say that insects are the most abundant and biodiverse, renewable animal resource on our planet. So what are insects? Where do they live? What do they do in the natural ecosystem? So basically they occupy all the different roles, like as primary consumers. We all know that many insects eat plants, but there are also insects eating other insects, and they're very useful in terms of biocontrol, but not only insects, so secondary consumers, but there are many insects who have a role as scavengers, as decomposers. And, very important, in nature there is no waste. Very important to remember. Now let's switch from natural ecosystems to man-managed ecosystem. City of Modena, agricultural ecosystem, and of course we are processing the food to obtain what we eat, okay? So what happens here is that if we have many inside the ecosystem, of course, then we switch the way we consider insects, for example. So we have some good ones, the pollinators. Yeah, we like them. They're needed because they pollinate many of the crops that we depend upon. But we know that there are many insects that are pests, and we need to contrast them in many different ways. And then, of course, we have other insects that are detritivorous. But of course, in this type of man-managed ecosystem, we have other type of primary consumers, of course, the herbivores that we can also use as food. And ourselves, we are here, we are basically omnivores, okay? But yeah, the problem here, when we are in the middle, we process our stuff, we live, we get, and then we have all the different type of waste. Organic waste. Now I'm focusing only on this type of waste. Different type of organic waste. So here from the processed products, we have byproducts, leftover, debris, different other type of waste. But of course, we have sewage, manure, and of course, we have the cadavers. So now, of course, there are insects that are detritivorous, but come on. In man-managed ecosystem, organic waste management is really a big issue. But we have some really bad numbers. I call them the numbers of shame. It is estimated that every year about 1/4 to 1/3 of all food produced for our human consumption is lost or wasted. It is really incredible. A huge amount of food is lost. Let's have a look at Europe. Europe, on average, we throw out about 173 kilograms of food in the waste bin. It is a real shame, okay? And by the way, this does not only mean throwing food in the bin. This means also a waste of water, land, energy, labor, and capital. And of course, further emission of greenhouse gases, of course, contributing further to global warming and climate change. Where does this food go off in Europe? Focusing on Europe especially, this is really a true shame. Maybe you don't see it very well, but really 53% of this amount is wasted in our household. We should really think about it and try to improve the way we consume our food, the way we use it, the way we manage it. So really, this is something each one of us should do. But then it is lost during food processing, food service and catering, primary production, and retail. But really, I mean, we already know there are initiatives to try to reduce this waste. But are there alternatives that can enhance, valorize these food waste, these leftovers, these byproducts? Especially I'm focusing on these ones here. So yes, to summarize, the different challenges that we need to address ensuring agri-food sustainability. So I'm really glad that also Giacomo talked about something that I'm just about to, repeat. So basically, yeah, we know we have to feed a growing population. And because we're suffering already a lack of protein and a lack of lipids. Another big challenge, rational pest management. We already know that the way we manage, especially the insect pests now, is totally not sustainable. I'm also working on that point of view, and I'm really trying to go forward to push biocontrol. But now the topic today is not that one. Another big challenge, of course, reduction of land consumption, efficient soil fertilization. Thank you, Giacomo, very much for your really nice presentation. Reduce water consumption, reduce, of course, the energy consumption, reduce those greenhouse gas emissions. You see how they are all interrelated, these challenges, and of course, reduce and manage this organic waste. So, yeah, an entomologist, what can I suggest? A possible solution to address most of those challenges is to rear insects. So if we want to take a look at the protein yield of different protein sources, here we see in this table, the first line is soybean, then we have beef, pork, chicken, and here we have 3 species of insects. The first one is mealworm, I'm going to show you later on, crickets, and then the black soldier fly. I will show you these ones. But, you know, we can see the different parameters here in this table, but I really want to focus here on the protein yield. You see here, numbers for soybean, beef are very, very low. Look at the insects here, but look at these especially. If we consider the protein yield, including the feedstock inputs, so, you know, we need to feed those animals in order to get, in the end, the meat to eat. Let's have a look here. Look here. For Tenebrio molitor, the mealworm, we have 4.06, and also for the black soldier fly, 4.8 up to 7.9. I mean, really huge compared to see soybean 0.1, beef 0.005. Unbelievable. So come on. What's the matter here? And yeah, but are all insects okay to be used for insect farming? So here I listed the features of the best candidates. So first of all, we need to know very well their biology. They must have a very high reproduction rate and a very good survival rate. They should have a number of generations, the possible really high. So it's better that we have insects that do not have diapause, for example. They should not be really prone to diseases. This is very important because we want to rear them industrially. So you really don't want something that gets sick very soon, okay? Of course, we need to know very, very well them in detail, their biology, their behavior. But then we have also some safety and quality features that we definitely need to consider because we want to rear them for feed and food. Therefore, they should have an excellent nutritional value in terms, of course, of nutrients, so protein, lipids, vitamins, and minerals as well. And of course, they must be safe. It means they must not contain toxic or contaminants. And of course, possibly, they should be palatable to us, and especially to the animals that we want to feed. But of course, we want to rear them industrially. So industrial feasibility features. So it should be great if we can feed them with the waste we just saw. This discarded stuff, okay, that we do not use as food or feed, okay? So those industrial byproducts, for example. And of course, they should be easily reared in industrial plants. That is not always easy because, of course, you need to respect the biology of the insects. And the rearing must require little space. Insects, they're usually very small. So basically, they're easy to be reared on stackable shelves, the condominium of insects. So you save a lot of space. Just think at all the space that we waste to have all those animals there and to cultivate the soybeans and so on, to feed them. So, of course, little water and little energy. But we will talk again about this. So which are the best candidates? They have been identified in mainly 3 groups of species. So the first group, I already told you, the mealworms. Mealworms, you know, they're pests. They are known as pests of stored product, okay? But because they're quite big, these ones, these are the larvae. Well, this is the one species. There are different species of mealworms, especially this one we rear in Europe. These a little bit. This is the giant one. And now it's becoming important because they're really big and probably even easier to rear. So basically, these larvae are about 1.5 centimeters, so they're quite good. And by the way, maybe you heard about EFSA approval of the first species of insect as food in the European Union, Tenebrio molitor, the mealworm, okay? So we already know it is okay. So first group of insects, they are beetles, Coleoptera. The second group of insects are crickets. And I mean, crickets have been used as food in different parts. They're still being used as food in different parts of the world, especially in Central to Southern America. So these species here, especially these one, very common ones, Aketa and the other ones, those crickets are also, they say, they're really also good in terms of human food. Okay, so crickets and, I mean, maybe that when we think about this organic waste, really the one that we throw in our recycling bin for the organic stuff, what is the first insect that comes in your mind when you think about this type of substrate? I think there is one that you know, definitely. The flies. Flies are the champions of decomposing organic materials, okay? Flies. And we have a huge biodiversity of flies as scavenger insects. Really, you can find many, many different species, and there are the ones specializing more on cadaver, carcasses, so on the type of substrate more rich in animal protein. They are the ones specializing more in decomposing vegetable substrate and so on. And then there are the ones that are kind of omnivores in terms of feeding on that stuff. So you probably already have seen some of them, okay? But maybe all of you have seen this one, the common housefly. Maybe not all of you have seen this one. So let's have a better look at them. So here we have the very common housefly. You know very well that you can find it in your house. Very nasty, okay? But why is it nasty? Because it lives a long life. For an insect, 1 month is a quite long life. And it needs to feed. It needs to feed on various protein-rich substances. That's why it comes in our houses to feed on the cheese, to feed on whatever, okay? So they need to feed before they lay their egg and so on. Looking at their larvae, that you know where the larvae feed. Maybe if you don't know, you can imagine. Where do these fly lay their egg? On very filthy stuff. That's it. Whatever type of filthy stuff. Anyway, they are very important. Of course, the flies as adults are very important vehicle of pathogens. The adults, I mean. Please take this into consideration, because whenever you see a fly flying towards you, you don't know where this fly is coming from. And on their legs, they can carry very bad pathogens, such as salmonella and many, many others. So this is a quite bad fly, okay? And the larvae, I mean, they're pests. These housefly, they're pests. However, let's have a look at these ones. A species that probably no one of you has ever seen, the black soldier fly. Why soldier? You see, it is a very elegant fly with these huge eyes. It seems like a soldier with a helmet, you know. Okay, but so this one here is not a pest. You never see it in your house. Why? Because they live a very short life as adult. They just live a couple of weeks. They do not need to feed. This is very common in insects. You have the larvae having a quite important life of being really the feeding machines, but the adults, in this case, they don't need to feed. And the larvae, importantly, wherever you have the larvae of these species, they make the substrate unsuitable for the living of the pest flies. We like them a lot. So we can consider them as useful species. Just to have a better look at their cycle, I don't want to annoy you, but just, you know, adults, they mate. They produce eggs. Each mass of egg has about 400 eggs, and they're microscopic. And then you have, from the eggs, the larvae, they feed on the substrate, and they grow up until this size. They're about 1.5, 2 centimeters, so they're quite big. This is the penultimate instar, the pupae, and then from here you get the adults, okay? So why are they so important? Already you have seen they're not pests, but let's have a look. So just imagine a very heterogeneous organic substrate, such as really the organic stuff you throw in the bin, okay? So from the microscopic egg, you have larvae, and on average, 15 to 20 days, or even less than that, they become big. Very, very fast development. They become big. And what are they doing? So they grow up on here. So they process this substrate. They become big, okay? And then what happens? So they do different things. So first of all, they reduce a lot the initial amount, the mass of the organic substrate. So we already have a very positive thing here. We have the reduction of the dry mass up to 60, even more %. So we like that a lot. By the way, because these insects feed in this substrate, they have to, be able to survive in presence of many pathogens. So these insects, they produce antibiotics. And by doing this, the bacterial load is being reduced. And as a consequence, also the bad smells are reduced when we have these flies here. But see, what is the output? The output of rearing these flies in this type of substrate is that in the end, we're going to have mature larvae. Mature larvae, they're animals. So they are a great source of proteins, of fats, of chitin that can be used for many, many industrial purposes. We will see. But what happens with what is the residual part, the frass? Basically, these are the excrement of the flies, and these are the exuviae of the larvae. So what is this? This is great to be used as a fertilizer for the crops. And it has been scientifically demonstrated. So yeah, just some numbers. Look at these in this review. From 1 ton of food waste, for example, we can get 40 kilograms of dry black soldier fly. This means 13 kilograms of protein, 15 of lipids, and 6 of carbohydrates, and also the chitin, which can be used for many industrial purposes. And this other review here is very interesting because it tells you that you can rear the black soldier fly on many types of organic substrate. Of course, we have some constraints in terms of legal constraints. So in Europe, for example, we cannot rear any animal on manure or on what is considered legally as waste. But this is in the European Union. We can rear them on, of course, human feces, agri-crop residue, slaughterhouse waste, and many types of food waste. And then what can we do with these larvae? We can get pigments, feed, bioplastic, we will see that. Other type of industrial uses, edible films, surgical thread with the chitin. With the fat, we can even get biodiesel. Of course, animal feed and lubricating agents, and as I told you already, with the frass, fertilizer, but also biogas and biochar. So basically, yeah, here we see the composition of the black soldier flies. Lot of the larvae, prepupae. We see a lot of protein, 32%. The amount of lipid depends a lot on the diet, but pretty much more than 34%. Very good quality in terms of amino acids, essential amino acids, and also in terms of fat. They're very rich in lauric acid, for example, which is really interesting on an industrial point of view. And yeah, I told you already, these insects, not only the black soldier fly, but all these flies, the larvae of these flies, they are known to be producing these bioactive compounds that can be incredibly useful in terms of antibiotics, anti-diabetic, antifungal properties, antioxidant, and so on. So really important also on a medical point of view. So my project, one of the projects that I've been working on is this one, Valori Bio. It is a project that ended in 2018. So in this case, we rear the black soldier fly larvae on chicken manure, added with zeolites. Okay? So we rear them there, and the reason why we wanted to rear the black soldier fly there was not really to make feed, because, I mean, used as feed. So what was the interesting part? We decided to use the proteins after the fractionation of the prepupae, the proteins to be used to make bioplastic for agricultural uses, okay? So it was a research project, and of course we've been looking at legal aspects and of course LCA and so on. And also we tested the FRAS for agronomic evaluations. So these are, we published many papers on this project. So I invite you eventually, if you are interested, to have a look at that. We also, as I told you, analyzed the life cycle assessment of the process. So here we identified the best condition to rear the larvae on this mix of chicken manure, water, and this cabazite is a synonym for zeolite, okay? So we identified the better situation to rear the larvae in these conditions. We also worked on the adults, because the adults, they fly. They don't feed, but they fly, and they need to lay their eggs. So we optimized the conditions using special types of LED lights, okay? And also we published the results here. And a very important output of this project, funded by the Region Emilia-Romagna, is that we were able to build some prototypes to rear the larvae and to rear the adults, okay, to obtain, to maximize the eggs. And we also patented the device for the egg laying of the females here. And these are the results of the agronomic evaluation. So basically, 10% of larval FRAS added to the substrate for the plants make really very good results comparable to the chemical control. Not too much, it's not good. And these are the bioplastics that we obtained. Of course, yeah, more research needs to be done, but yeah, we did obtain something. We published the paper, but it's a way, okay? These are the results published for the agronomic evaluations. We also, really the aim of the bioplastic was to obtain this film to put on the crops. The problem is that it was too biodegradable. So yeah, need to work a little bit more on that. Sorry for this problem here. But anyway, this is another project that is still ongoing. This one also funded by the Region Emilia-Romagna, Flies for Value. In this case, we are using black soldier fly, which are reared on byproducts from the agri-food industry, the regional agri-food industry. So basically, tomato, discarded materials, the seeds and the skins, the bran, and also, we know we are in Emilia-Romagna, so the scotta. The scotta is what comes out after you make the cheese, after you make the ricotta, okay? So we reared the black soldier fly. We selected the different substrate. We made preliminary trials. So what was the purpose of rearing the flies on this type of substrate? You see, sometimes serendipity happens. So we realized that by rearing the black soldier fly on tomato byproducts, the larvae were not whitish, they were pinkish reddish. What does that mean? They had pigments, lycopene, or other pigments in their body. So the idea was, okay, so let's rear the black soldier fly on substrate that are rich in these pigments, and we will obtain larvae that will be used as a component to make feed for laying hens. You know that to have in Italy, we like the eggs that have red inside, and maybe you know that in order to have this nice red color, the hens are fed with some artificial integrators rich in these pigments, but this is not good for the liver of the poor hens. And it's very, very expensive, so why not if the pigments are already inside the feed? So this is the aim of the project, obtaining these. So the project is still ongoing, and of course also in this case we are using the FRAS for agronomic evaluation. But look at these, by the way. Italy flag. Here we have, the tomato. Here we have the banana. Here we have the green beans, okay, dried green beans. Okay, so we're still working on it. We produced 55 kilograms in a prototype of these black soldier flies, and now they're being used to make the feed for the laying hens, and we will check the quality of the egg throughout. And of course, the overall quality, and of course, the LCA, and so on. But going back to sustainability, why is rearing insects a sustainable way? Is sustainable towards improving our agri-food systems. So first of all, insects, as you saw, can be reared on byproducts, on something that we just throw out, organic stuff. Farmed insects emit far fewer greenhouse gases and also ammonia. Very important. The energy consumption of the rearing insect, yeah, there is some, because of course these insects are of tropical origin, so you need to rear them in at 27 degrees. So of course you need some energy, but much less than rearing, farming the other animals. The LCA has been performed on different farming system of insects and is always great, shows great sustainability. And by the way, very interestingly, you can even use insects as entomoremediation. What does that mean? If you have something contaminated with heavy metals, for example, you rear the insects, they are fine, and then you concentrate the heavy metals, for example, in the chitin or in the body of the flies, and you get it out from the contaminated substrate. And then you can recycle that heavy metals from there. So this is just great. And this is really the best part here. The edible share of an insect is 80% compared to just 40% of the beef. And look here, the feed conversion. What means the feed conversion? How much we feed them and how much we get in terms of meat, okay? So the insects are twice better than the chicken, 5 times better than the pigs, 12 times better in terms of conversion compared to beef. But look at also the water footprint. Insects, they don't even have water, need water. It is already in the substrate. Look at impressive amount of water needed for beef. Of course, the land use, I told you already, the condominium with insects, so incomparable. And of course, the global warming potential, it is, incomparable. By the way, compared to the traditional animal farming, any insect farming has much fewer problems in terms of animal welfare. Yeah, maybe they feel, I'm sure. But it's not like vertebrates. And much less risks for the transmission of zoonosis. We are all under coronavirus. We all know it is a zoonosis. So rearing insect is much better. So summarizing everything, looking at the different challenges that we need to address in terms of agri-food sustainability, basically we can conclude that rearing insects addresses all the challenges. We saw that insect farming can be a powerful circular economy tool to valorize those organic waste and to obtain also soil improvers. We have seen how we can use them for different types of stuff, you saw. So most sustainable source of dietary proteins, fat, and very other types of high-value products. And with this, I thank you really very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor, for your passion, okay? He is an insect lover, born an entomologist. I think it's a very tricky, I don't know, maybe field, so if you have some question or some curiosity? No?
No, everything
Nothing.
was so clear.
Wow.
What about the fly taste?
Yeah, I mean, I never tasted the flies, the larvae of the flies, but I know. Okay. I mean, in Italy, nope, but in many other parts of the world, they are even used as food. They say that the taste of the larvae of the flies is not as good as the taste of crickets. But, we have flavors. We can, cook it in a different way. Of course, if you fry, everything is always very good. but really, you can always improve that part. Really, especially the black soldier fly are quite easy to rear. Not easy, I would say quite easy. But yeah, and basically you can feed them on anything. And if you exclude the legal impediments, pretty much you can think of anything which is organic and is humid to rear them. So, and by the way, one thing that as an entomologist, we know that biodiversity of insects are, all over the world, only black soldier flies are reared. So what about all the other species? We still have to discover them. Maybe they're even better. So, research.
Okay. You receive a lot of compliment also by people by streaming.
Oh, thank you so much.
Grande Lara. Thank you, Lara.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you. Again. Next one, Professor Patrizia Brigidi from University of Bologna.
Good
Okay,
afternoon.
we're waiting presentation. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Francesca, for the presentation, and let me thank the organizers at our Emilia-Romagna region and all of the people who are here today with us. So, from insect, we are moving to microorganisms, because today I would like to show you some results of the team of the University of Bologna, which is working on microbiomes. And when I say microbiomes, I am referring to a complex, dense microbial community which are living on all the macroorganisms populating our planet. So nowadays we know that all the type of life in our world are stably colonized by these microbiomes. So it means these communities of bacteria, viruses, yeasts, and viruses. And what is important is that we have a positive view of these microorganisms. So we are not thinking to these microbiomes as potential pathogens, but for us they are very, very important, because we know that are able to offer, to integrate the metabolism of the host with a lot of metabolic capacities that we didn't evolve by our own. And just to give you some example, we know, and we, of course, the human microbiomes are the most characterized and the well-known respect to other microbial community, which are able to colonize animals, other animals, including, insect, and what is quite important for us, even plants. And as I told you before, the complexities, this is a very dense, difficult to characterize, to study a community, because there is a strong interaction, not only between these microorganisms with the host, an intense cross-talk with different organs and tissues of the host, but there is also a strong interaction between microorganisms and microorganisms, which are organized, I would like to say, in complex networks which need each other for the final production of metabolites, which can be considered true metabolite, true bioactive molecules which are able to impact on the metabolism and the physiology of the host. Just to give you some example, here we are referring to the activities of many enzymes produced by the inhabitants of our gastrointestinal tract, which are able to produce thousands of enzymes involved in the degradation of complex poly and oligosaccharide, which are ingested with the diet. And take into account, and I would like to stress that our own DNA, I mean the human genome, can just produce about less than 20 enzymes involved in this degradation. So it means that we need to have, for example, these tools, these microbial enzymatic tools in order to recover more energy from our diet. And also the physiology is involved, because it has been demonstrated that in a human being, these microbial metabolites are involved in strengthening the integrity of the intestinal epithelium, decreasing an important effect which is named endotoxemia and is involved in sustaining the inflammation. And of course, these microorganisms represent an important barrier for preventing the infection of potential exogenous enteropathogen. So we have really to think that these microbiomes are like, I would like to say, the living fermenters able to produce these metabolites, which are the tools impacting on the different metabolic pathway and activities. And just to give you a number, it has been estimated that about 10% of the metabolites present in the human blood are derived from the microbiomes. And I mean, it's quite difficult to study this type of complex community, microbial community, because most of them are strict anaerobic bacteria, and for most of them, we don't know which are their nutritional need. So in other words, we are not able to grow these microorganisms using the classical microbiological techniques. And for this reason, in the last, I would like to say 5-7 years, because of the availability of next generation sequencing techniques, we were able to better characterize this complex community. And I would like to stress that in order to understand which is the functional activities of this microbial community, we need to couple for a comprehensive view of this functional activity, not only the metagenome and metatranscriptome activity, which are mainly focused on the characterization of DNA and messenger RNA, but we need also to have other omics techniques integrated just to have a vision about the proteins and the metabolites produced by these complex syntrophic consortia. And that is necessary in order to understand which is the impact on the phenotype of the host. And of course, this means that by using this omics technique, we are able to produce a huge amount of data, and it is quite difficult to manage this data. And for doing that, we need to have specific and dedicated bioinformatic tools which are able to tell us which are the components of these complex microbial ecosystems, even at the level of strains. I mean, not only at the level of species, but at the strain level. We can have a view of the so-called virome, I mean the communities of viruses, and a view of the microbiome, I mean of the fungi community. But by using machine learning and AI approaches, we can also integrate all this huge data in order to have a vision about the impact of the systems, at the systems biology level. So in order to understand which are the main receptors, the main tissues, organs, which are triggered in some way by these metabolites. And just to give you an idea about the potential of exploiting this microbial, this good, I would like to say, microbial community, I give you just a flavor about the potential activity on the human being when the host is the human being, because they play a key role in the immune homeostasis, and I would like to stress that the immune homeostasis is a key word for our health, because most of the human disorders are triggered by inflammation. Is important for guarantee the intestinal epithelium, for the modulation of the energy recovery, but for the protection of the host, for the synthesis of vitamins, because we know that we are not able to synthesize a vitamin, for the detoxification of xenobiotic. We are living in an anthropic world, as we have seen before, and are able to modulate the endocrine system and the central nervous by the so-called gut-brain axis. But this activity is even quite relevant for another type of host, and I am referring to animals. So once again, this microbial community can facilitate the energy recovery from the diet, from the feed, and can promote the growth of the host, like as we have seen in a human. And that is important because don't forget that in intensive production, antibiotic, I mean, in some countries is still used for promoting the growth of the host. Of course, is important for the intestinal function, which is in some way related with the metabolism, for the production of the intestinal vessel, for the bone homeostasis, and last but not the least, for the controlling the anxiety of the animals. And these microbiomes play also an important role for the growth of plants, because even in this case, the microbial community, which can be associated with the roots, but also with the leaves, can, support us in improving the production in terms of not only of productivity, but also in terms of quality. And so we can sustain by using the bright soil microbiome, we can sustain agriculture, and can be an important tool also for dealing with the climate change, because we know that they are involved in the nitrogen flux, as was mentioned before by my previous speaker, and also for the carbon storage. But even for plants, microorganism can be an important tool for preventing the colonization of pathogen microorganisms, and can be involved in the adaptation of these plants in living in not, I would like to say, easy environments. For example, just because we are here in Dubai, I would like to mention that the desert bacteria are now very, very interesting, because they can protect crops from salt, which is, as we know, quite toxic for the plant. But I would like also to add another piece to this complex puzzle, which is that the plasticity of this microbiome. I mean, these communities are not stable, they are plastics, so it means that they can answer to external or internal modification because of the application of a specific insult or pressure. So if the environment changes, can change also in response of this changing. The microbiome will change just because it is plastic, and the final response of this adaptation can be positive, so sustaining the host to living in a different situation, but can be also negative for the host, because it can support the change of the microbiome towards a so-called dysbiotic profile. So it means that the microbiome is not anymore well balanced, and the proportion, the abundances of the different components are changed, and can be there can be an increase in some, I would like to say, negative component of this microbiome. And so in this situation, which if we think a crop, we can think the modification related to the anthropic effect on the soil, and I don't lose time because both Giacomo and Lara told us before about this problem. But I mean, in this situation, we need to modify to move back the microbiome towards a healthy profile. And for doing that, we know that there are different tools, different opportunities, which includes, for example, for animals and including human being, dietary intervention, but can be also, but it can be also include the addition of next generation probiotics. I mean, living microorganisms which are selected following a strict rationale in order to move to come back to the eubiotic profile, prebiotics, which are specific oligosaccharides which can be used by the good microorganism, and finally fecal transplantation. The fecal transplantation is used in human being, also in Italy. Just to give you an example, Bologna is a center for this fecal transplantation in Emilia-Romagna region, but it is used even for animal. And the modification of the microbiome of the soil can, once again, improve, to change the situation towards a rich, in terms of microbiome soil. And so I would like to stress this concept, which is the One Health theory applied to the microbiome. We need really to have a view of the microbiomes on our planet, very well interconnected. I mean, there is a stronger connection among the animal, plant, soil, ocean, microbiomes, and this interconnection, and the last, I would like to say, part of this chain is the human being. So, maintaining the biodiversity of all these microbiomes, we are able to maintain even our own microbiome biodiversity. And even for our microorganism, dear Lara, the biodiversity is a very, very important parameter. Biodiversity, high biodiversity means health microbiome, good microbiome. And so in this perspective, I mean, microbiome nowadays is an important topic of research. And just to give you an information, the European Commission invested more than 500 million of euros during the last Age 2020 World Program in projects which were focused on microbiomes. Microbiomes in sea, ocean, land, human, animal, and so. I don't know in insect. I will check. Anyway, I give you just an idea of what we are doing as a community, microbiome community at Unibo, because the team of Unibo involved, interested in microbiome is a huge team of people coming from different departments. And we are coordinating this project, European project, Circle. Circle applied to this call, controlling microbiome circulation for better food system. And Circle, which is entitled Unlocking the Potential of Microbiomes for Sustainable Food Production, is a project granted with 9 million euros and with 30 partners, both from research institution and industry. And the goal, the idea is just to exploit the use of a microbiome, the modification of a microbiome in order to obtain food, to increase the productivity of the food, but maintaining the quality of the food obtained, and of course with a great attention to the environmental sustainability. So the goal of Circle is to discover new community of microorganisms which can be used in order to improve sustainability, quality, productivity, and safety of the European food system. And all these approaches are based on a microbiome tool. And in particular, we are studying 6 different food chains. The first one includes spinach and tomatoes, so plant microbiome, and of course a large company from Emilia-Romagna is involved in this type of activity. Then second value chain is the poultry pigs, so just to respect what you said before, Lara, value chain with another Italian company involved. And the third value chain is the farmed and the wild salmon and sea bream production. And of course, there is Bolton and other European company. This project, I'm sorry, I come back. This project is still ongoing because it started just 1 year before the COVID-19 pandemic. And so what we have done is it has been to prepare a huge biobank of the different microorganisms inhabiting the different environment we study. A second project I would like to mention very quickly is this New Age project. New Age applied to the diet and prevention of function and decline of the elderly. So that was another call of the European Commission, in which the goal was to improve the healthy aging of the European population. And we know that by the modification of the microbiome by the diet, through the diet, we can try to delay these aging processes. The idea of New Age, the title is New Dietary Strategies Addressing the Specific Need of the Elderly Population for Healthy Aging in Europe, was mainly focused on inflammaging. Inflammaging is a chronic, low-grade inflammatory status, which is specific of the elderly. And this inflammaging sustain let me say, aging of several organs and tissues. So it is one of the major drivers of aging. And we know that by the microbiome plays an important role on the immune system. Don't forget that about 70% of our immune system is located in the gastrointestinal tract. So the idea was to try to modify the gut microbiome through diet, through a specific diet, in order to see if we were able to decrease the inflammation. And for doing that, we recruited 1,250 elderly, pre-frail or healthy, in 5 European countries. And we applied a 1-year Mediterranean diet, which is a little bit modified in order to address specific needs of elderly in terms of vitamin D concentration, protein, vegetable proteins, and fibers and other specific need. And then after this 1 year of treatment, we analyzed the microbiome of 600 subjects. At the beginning of the study, as you can see, we got a clear separation in 3 different clusters of the elderly included in the study, depending on the dietary behavior. Italian were were represented in one cluster, and UK and France elderly showed quite a similar dietary behavior, as well as Poland with the Netherlands. And after the 1 year of intervention, you can see that all the people involved, all the elderly involved in the intervention study showed a similar pattern behavior of dietary. What we have seen, in few words, is that we were able to see that there was an improve of the biodiversity of the gut microbiome related just in the people who followed the Mediterranean diet intervention. And we were also able to identify a strong modification of the human gut microbiome. In particular, we found some taxa. I have no time to go into the detail, but we identified some taxa which were able to have an increase in response to the Mediterranean dietary intervention. And all of these microorganisms, or all of these taxa, of course, have are health promoter, so have a positive effect for the health of the host. But we were also able to identify the so-called diet negative microorganisms, so I mean microorganisms whose concentration was negatively related to the dietary intervention. And the majority of these microorganisms are producer of negative compound, negative metabolites. And what we also were able to analyze by a machine learning approach, it was that in people following the Mediterranean diet, there was a decrease of markers of frailty as well as of markers of inflammation. So it means that we had an important positive results, particularly in terms of inflammation, and we found also a positive improve of the cognitive function. And when we inferred the microbial metabolite profiling, once again, we could see that the metabolite produced by this different, diverse microbiome were metabolites related to the increased production of short-chain fatty acid, which have a positive effect for the host, and a decreased production of secondary bile acid, paracrisol, ethanol, and carbon dioxide. And looking at the overall picture of the microbiome, which is quite complex and is, described as a co-occurrence network. So the interaction between microorganisms, what was quite interesting to see, it was that the diet-positive microorganisms occupied keystone interaction in the network. So they are necessary to sustain the network, and so to sustain the metabolic function of the network. Finally, we look at the Italian population, just to our Italian elderly population, and what we have seen, looking at, of course, the microbiome, it was the identification of 3 different clusters of people. And one of these cluster was characterized by a strong increase of biodiversity and a very high adherence to the Mediterranean diet, and an increase of some healthy microorganism. Christensenella is very interesting because I'm sure that it will be one of the next generation probiotics used for healthy aging. And what we have seen, it has been that this group of elderly showed a positive correlation with the visceral fat. That is quite interesting because you know that aging is also characterized by a strong modification of the body structure, the body composition, with an increase of accumulation of fat, particularly in abdominal. And we have seen that this subject showed adhering to the Mediterranean diet with a high biodiversity showed this negative correlation. So we are going to demonstrate the role of the microorganism for the agri-food sustainable production by circle. And I think we, improved our knowledge about the relevance of the diet related to the microbiome modulation for our healthy aging. So I invite people interested in the role of the microorganism in the interaction with its host to join our team at Unibo. And of course, I thank you for your attention.
So, thank you for this interesting presentation. I don't know if you have questions or there are some questions from people at home.
Lara.
La.
I'm really very interested in this topic. And you said about Mediterranean diet, but Mediterranean diet means also lots of vegetables, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I heard that really the importance of eating a big amount of vegetables, biodiverse, like different types of vegetables. Is that correct?
It's correct, and for looking at the microbiome, one of the most important part of this story is also the fiber content, because the fiber is the real fuel of our good intestinal microorganisms, and the balance is very important because we need to have in our microbiome what we call pathobionts. So it means microorganisms which can be potentially pathogen, but they are necessary in order to trigger, to boost the immune system, but they have to be present at very low concentration. And when you move toward the dysbiotic profile, the concentration, the abundance of this microorganism increases. And so it is important to, sustain the growth of the good ones, which generally are saccharolytic microorganisms, so they like fiber.
And in fact, eating junk food is very detrimental.
Because of the
Very poor,
because there are a lot of fat, but Francesca can tell us much more about this point.
No, I don't. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next presentation is from Professor Francesco Capozzi, University of Bologna, and after three interesting presentation on sustainability and health, now is going to, answer a very, I think, difficult question.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me, and especially I would like to express my real great thanks to our friends. Yes, Francesca Scazzina from University of Parma, who organizes the whole stuff here.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Let us give to Francesca what is of Francesca. Okay, and let me start about food. So up to now we have talked about environment, about feeding, about nutrients for the earth. But let's talk also about food in the sense of what we eat usually. And okay, we have also seen some future scenario just because we have very important challenges to face up in the future, including the availability of sufficient resources for this growing population. So, I have a question, and this question is not only for the public, it's also for the scientists, because food science is a very challenging sector, it's a very challenging kingdom, because food has to fit several purposes, not only to be available, to be affordable, but also to be useful for our life, and especially for our healthy life. The question is sustainable food also healthy? That means that it's also written in Arabic, but don't ask me to pronunciate that, please, because we are also in the Italian pavilion, so we will talk about English version of this title. And I am a professor of chemistry. So as Lara is in love for insects, I'm in love for molecules. So for me, substances are molecules, and without chemistry, we are talking just about nothing, because even air has molecules inside. So chemistry is all around us. And the question is about what means sustainability in terms of what is in the argument for economists now. Sustainability, you see that many of the people involved in sustainability now are economists. And we call about bioeconomy, circular economy. Everything is economy. It's important, because without economy, so the science of our our environment, we cannot go over. And economy is important because even for the economic impact you see there, without profits you have not investment, you have not future food. You have only the tradition that is becoming more obsolete. So we need innovation also in food, which is considered the most traditional sector of technology and science. But it's not true. It has to be renewed every time to get more performant food. So also jobs are related to the sustainability. And the whole food supply has a very big role in making this, let's say, delivery of food affordable to the society. We live in big cities now, for example, and we cannot think about just cultivate our own heart in our balcony or in our terrace. We need a massive production of food. And also for the social impact, sustainability is very important, because we cannot think about the future as producing food at the expenses of the minorities, which are the majorities now. So people that are overexploited, the human capital is exploited, not only the environment. And so we need to think about the new future also in food production. And okay, we are talking about the environmental impacts much more than other impacts. And you know that we need to reduce our carbon footprint, water footprint. We need to conserve the soil to make it exploitable also in the future for the next generations. And we have to think about animal health, biodiversity. It's a recurrent word today. Food loss and waste and toxicity are arguments for managing the environmental impact and reduce it. And let's talk about how to produce a food. A new food, an innovation in food means that you have not just to harvest your crop, you have to transform the crop, the grain, in bread. And I have been also addressed some questions about, what about bread made by insect powder? And say, it's possible. And my answer was asked to the technologists, to the food technologists. Can we use this powder to produce bread, or bread is made by other main ingredients that you can also, let's say, mix with other materials, more sustainable materials. But bread is bread. And to go on with the new products, that any company, any enterprises has to look at the market. Is the new product be accepted by the consumers before that? Because otherwise you can invent whatever you want, but if the consumer will not consume it, it's just a waste of resources. And so you have to see in the definition of your food, the new idea, have challenges that are also made, let's say, facilitated by what happens with and without you. For example, the push for innovation is something that is coming from society. The demand from customers, change of lifestyle. We are not at home anymore. We are eating more and more outside our houses. And so that means that we need another way to consume our foods. We need more, for example, ready to eat, or at least ready to cook food. And then we have also to see for enterprises what happens if you think to produce another food, and then you can lose your market, your consolidated market. No? You know that Emilia-Romagna region has a very huge amount of products which are recognized worldwide for their quality. And if you change a little bit that quality, what happens to your market? And so you have to go then with the product implementation once you have answered to that question. And you can develop prototypes to check if the quality, the standard quality is, let's say, feasible. Then you make some consumer testing. So before telling that insect will be the future, probably we need to know if consumers will appreciate that food. And then you have to modify after you, even if you think that the product is mature, probably you have to modify it just to fit the taste of different populations, different communities, because not all the people have the same tastes. And market pressure and competitiveness is another driver for making innovation. And so at the end, at the end, after that you find the good products, you have to scale up your product, because then you have to feed the planet, not only your own house. Just like gastronomy makes, no? You can make some innovation as a chef, but then, okay, if you don't like, it's just damage for few, not for the whole community. And then you can, at the end of this development of food products, you got the product launch at the end. So, the title of our shared project is From Farm to Fork. To fork. Yes, not to pork, but to fork. Okay, I'm a little bit hungry now, so I'm thinking about prosciutto di Parma. And so, from farm and byproducts, we have seen today that whatever is recovered by waste could be considered a valued ingredient, a valued matter, so a byproduct. And I will show you that it is possible to exploit what it could be a waste if you use it in a proper way, not only for feeding animals, but also for feeding humans, which is the highest value that you can give to the production. And so you see that how much is complicated to prepare, no? In a food from ingredients. You have to decide which ingredients, what is the formulation, what are the technological unit operation that you have to apply to get properly your food, and then you have to run sensory, safety, shelf life, composition tests, and then you go to production. Packaging is very important because it preserves quality, it also guarantees the authenticity, and so on. So packaging material are very, very important, because otherwise, if you think that that material could be useful for preparing packaging, then you can get some trouble because there is molecules release from that materials. And this is very important because they are in contact with food. And then you need some also consumer science to drive consumers to make the right choice. This is very important. And so, just how difficult is the trip going from ingredients, from the primary production to the final product, food products. And so, just talking about something about where Italy is not known for pasta, you know. Italy is known for hamburger or for Würstel. No, it's a joke. Let's say that pasta is something which is well known about Italy in the whole world. And the pasta is not so easy to prepare in a proper way. It's not just adding ingredients. And you know, pasta, it is not different from each other just because the shape is different, but because the structure within the pasta is different. It makes the difference not only in the taste, not only in the palatability, but also in the bioavailability of nutrients which are embedded in the matrix. Pasta has a matrix, has a structure, three-dimensional structure. And you see here that we have some electron microscopy of pasta that are giving us a picture of how complicated is also the structure of pasta, because you have starch granules within a network of protein, gluten proteins. So you cannot substitute whatever matter with other matter. It is not just working with Lego. We are playing with molecules, and this is why I'm very appropriate scientist also for this. Not only me, but together in a team. And I'm also expert of NMR spectroscopy and relaxometry, so I'm characterizing the food structure in a way that makes food diversity very important and makes the difference. If you go in the Italian Pantheon, you will see that there is a biodiversity of products, even if they are made by the same ingredients, just because there is a culture in mixing them in a proper way. And you see, now we are talking about health. What about putting together fibers coming from, let's say, crops which are less dedicated to pasta? For example, lentils. Lentils contain fibers that could be added as ingredient in pasta, but then are you sure that the final product will be accepted by consumer? No, because it will not be al dente, will not be with the proper texture. And so you need to do some not only technologies, but also characterization. And if you have a high resolution definition of your food, then you can also discriminate from food to food. Otherwise, if you are just talking about pasta or about Würstel or about something other things, then you are just generalizing. names are not structures. You will not say apple. Which apple? Okay? Cultivated in which crop yard? How? When you collected them? When you harvested them? So there are many, many, many parameters that have to be controlled if you want to define at high resolution the quality of food. And so we are using at the University of Bologna the most updated, most innovative technologies to define food, and then, for example, what happens to food if you use the so-called byproducts, something which is usually considered as a waste from the cereal industry. If you use bran, you just use bran, you add your bran in pasta when you are preparing the food products, then you will have something which will be not accepted by the consumers, because it will be sandy. No? It has a bad texture in your mouth, and you will not appreciate pasta anymore. So you need to make some very important, not only, let's say, chemical technology or mechanic technology. You can also biotechnology. You can also use microorganisms, because microorganisms have also enzymatic pools that are able to transform something which is unpleasant with something which tastes good. For example, you see here ferulic acid has a very, very bitter, astringent taste, and its content in the brain. But if you convert by biofermentation this ferulic acid in vanillin, then you get a very good taste. So chemistry means also transform something which is unpleasant in something which is a pleasure. And at the end, you see, you can prepare oligosaccharides which are prebiotics, as Professor Brigidi told us. And this is the result of a European, not very last project. Namaste was a precursor of this kind of application, and Bologna was the coordinator of this project, trying to get byproducts from waste that are still food-grade waste, not contaminated. For example, peel from orange. They are good, but you are not using that when you are squeezing orange to prepare juice. Then you will dispose that in the recycling, not in the recycle bin, but in the organic bin. No? But this technique will also use that as a fibers for enriching fruit juice and making them more stable. Long shelf life means also that you have the product more stable longer. And so you avoid another waste, you avoid another impact on the environment. This is another project which is, I was a coordinator by accident, and in this project, the project was named Produce Food for People at Risk of Poverty by using low-cost technologies and low-cost ingredients, but healthy products. So not junk food, by using low-quality products, but low cost doesn't mean low quality, if low cost means just that you have optimized the production with low-cost technologies. Okay, we used, for example, bran, optimized in a proper way, to get bread, okay? But there is a lot of work by food technologies to prepare bread with the right shape, bubbles inside, for example, no? But also having the right sensory properties. That wet graph that you have on the left of this slide means that you have different quality no? Different sensorial properties. For example, the color, the uniformity, elasticity of crumb, the coarseness of the crumb. You have the bitter aftertaste. And so if you are using the right processing conditions, you will get a very, very good product. If you are using the wrong technology, you are getting from the good ingredients a very bad product. So this is a message that means that you don't need only good ingredients, but you also need good food producers. And excuse me if I'm saying that Italy is this one. So this is another project, is the pathway, and this is another idea behind this project. Could you change the habits of the population and making them consuming healthier food? No, there is no way. Population will maintain, will keep the same habits. It's very difficult to say that don't eat it, eat this one. Because they will continue to eat, for example, sandwiches, French chips. It's just like to ask children, what do you want to have for dinner? They will never tell you that they will, just because the mom or father say, eat vegetables because it's better. They will eat whatever they like. And the same is for the population. With the aggravation that the cost is another driver. So usually junk food is also cheaper. And so if we prepare food with the proper affordable cost, but we put inside the bioactive molecules that we know have a positive effect on microbiome or on directly on our metabolism, and we use the food that the people are used to consume. We use this food as a Trojan horse. We put inside the good molecules within the accepted food. So this is the rationale, the concept that will help us to change the dietary habits in the population. Just not to force them to change completely their mind, but use some improved food, provided that the taste is good. This is very important. And so, this is my last, it's my job. This is my job, and this is my last slide. It's about, we know that the whole molecules contained, the whole set of molecules contained in biological matter are called metabolome, because are the last ring of the life chain. Okay, so at the end we are what we are because we have molecules within us, and the whole set is called metabolome. The whole set of molecules within food is called foodome. Okay, and it comes from not only from the primary products, not only from the ingredients, but also from the, for example, from the fermentation, which is a technology. It's a technology application. And so at the end, the foodome should be as much as possible defined by techniques which are called spectroscopic, because are looking at whatever is within the sample, not only a target analysis. So we are looking for vitamin D. Probably vitamin D is not the molecule that we are interested in. There are other molecules which are more interesting, but we don't know. So spectroscopy will have a broad spectra, means will cover whatever is within the food. And then once we have defined with that instrument that you see in the middle, we have defined the foodome, then you have to define also the human metabolome. So I use my urine, my blood, my saliva, my feces, everything to define what I am. And then, after measuring that, I will see what happens if I have that diet instead of the other one. What is the perturbation? What is the effect on my metabolism? And if we know what is the healthy metabolism, then we can choose to have a diet which brings us up in the green, happy phase and not down in the red, unhappy, sad phase. Because we can recognize what is our healthy diet, because we know if we have the fingerprint of the healthy metabolism, we know that we are reaching that. And this could be possible by means of artificial intelligence, because it's a so complicated interconnection between the different metabolisms, so the foodome, the human normal metabolism, and the optimized metabolism is so complicated links that you need artificial intelligence to understand big data. But please remember that big data are numbers, interpretation are concepts, and they have to be left to the scientists that are able to interpret the data. So mathematicians are required, physicians are required to manage data, but then biologists, food scientists, nutritionists, and all the people that economics, let's say, are able to understand food, then they have to be consulted. So this is my message from our project. I hope that I stayed in time, and then I leave the shake to the next speaker.
Do you have some questions? No? It's okay?
Okay.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Beatrice Biasini. Dr. Beatrice Biasini, I'm very glad to present her because she is was my PhD student. And we talk about how much food we throw away, about 1/3 of production, and how it's important to follow a proper diet for health. And so Beatrice keep all these things together in her presentation. Okay.
Yes, so thank you. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you, Francesca, for her coordination activity and also for inviting me. So I'm very glad to be here today. And so we told about feed, microbiome, food, and now we have to talk about behavior, so eating behaviors, and in particular how to shift dietary behavior in people, because of course we can have sustainable food, but then we have to convince people to eat it. So I'm going to start a presentation about NUBI, and more in general about a set of educational resources that we developed within an European project which is Strength to Food. And in particular, I will focus on a nutritional smartphone application which is called NUBI, and it is currently used in Parma. So I will start my presentation providing just a rationale by which we have to convince people to follow healthy and sustainable diets. I will provide a brief overview about the Strength to Food project. Now I'm going to show a little bit of the tasks and deliverables that have been accomplished by the project. And I will finally conclude my presentation providing some take-home messages and recommendations. Of course, we know that unhealthy diets, which are those diets characterized by high level of salt, saturated fatty acids, and also simple sugars provided by, for example, sweetened beverages. We know that these unhealthy diets are one of the leading causes of global malnutrition, We also know that unhealthy diets are one of the top 10 risk factors for morbidity and mortality worldwide. We know also that improper diets, for example, skipping breakfast or a misconception of the adequate food portions as well as improper snacking can lead to an increased risk of overweight and obesity. And we see that the prevalence of these phenomena are quite impressive. We can see steep trends also in different age ranges, also in school-age children. So to prevent childhood obesity in particular, FAO recommends some actions which are, for example, trying to increase the intake of fruit and vegetables, increase the consumption of whole grains and legumes, together with a reduction of the intake of saturated fatty acids and also, as we said, simple sugars, together with the recommendation of being physically active. So we need to recognize that it is not so simple to fight and prevent childhood obesity. To curb these phenomena, we need to apply a multi-actor approach, I would say an holistic approach, which can take into account different areas of work. And these are, for example, the promotion of a healthy food environment to provide the children with a safe food. Of course, then we have to consider that we need an effective food and nutrition education because, as we said, we need to convince and to shift dietary behaviors towards sustainable practices. We have to consider also, as third point, the provision of an inclusive food procurement and value chains for the school food. And of course, as the final step, we need to create an enabling policy, legal, institutional environment for the whole school community. According to a contemporary statement, we can define nutrition education as a combination of different educational strategies in a good environment that can make easy the adoption of food choices and also other food and nutrition behaviors that can lead to health and also well-being. Of course, we have to recognize that, as we said, the nutrition education needs a multi-actor approach, so we need to consider different activities and also different levels, so the individual, the community, and the policy levels that, of course, are all needed to change behavior. We know also that diets and eating behaviors are influenced by a multitude of factors, so starting from the individual, considering also the community, the institutional level, and the national level. Because, of course, we have to consider personal food preferences, we have to consider the possibility, for example, of peer influence on them, and also the food environment, which is in turn related to the food accessibility, food availability, and also it is linked to the institutional framework. And we know that the nutrition education can act at all of these levels. So it is a resource that we need to consider and we need to address in the best way to reach our goals. So I just provide a brief overview of the Strength to Food project, which is, as I said, the project in which we developed such kind of resources. This project started in 2016, while ended this year on May. It aimed at strengthening European food chain sustainability by quality and procurement policy. It has been coordinated by Newcastle University, while the University of Parma was the deputy. And the general aim was to increase the effectiveness of European food quality schemes, the public sector for procurement, and also the stimulation of short supply chains through research, innovation, demonstration activities, with the final aim to provide practical recommendations for stakeholders and policymakers. In particular, we applied case study-based qualitative and quantitative research to evaluate, to assess the social, economic, and environmental impact of all of these three pillars, so short supply chains, public sector for procurement, and also food quality schemes. I going to focus a bit on public sector food procurement, as we know, as also recognized by our Ministry of Health. Collective and school catering in particular present important roles and also specific objectives. These roles consider the health, the education, the inclusivity, as of course we have to consider that these collective and school catering need to prevent and manage diet-related disease, considering as a reference dietary models that for which validity and efficacy has been scientifically demonstrated. And one example is the Mediterranean diet, as we also heard by previous speaker, as it can prevent chronic diseases related to diabetes or cardiovascular diseases, cognitive disorders also, so it is quite important to consider as reference good diet. It is linked also to education because, of course, it should influence not only individual but also collective food choices towards sustainable eating behaviors and practices. And the third role is related to inclusivity, as of course we need to consider that mainly in the school catering present this important role, so reduce social inequalities, considering the possibility to stimulate social integration between people and in particular between children. As objective, we can consider that, of course, we need to mention the service optimization of these collective and school catering, but also, of course, they need to consider nutritional and sensory quality of the products, as we said before, because we need that children can eat this food. So it is just not should be just not safe, of course, but it should be also good for us. So we need to consider these aspects, and also aspects related to quality certifications, giving the importance of the link between food products and their territory, of course. Moreover, also in the document that I mentioned, the teacher presents a role which is really paramount, because they can use school lunch, so the meal that is consumed by children at school, as an opportunity to stimulate curiosity towards our, for example, food preparations, other food culture, also with considering the aim of promote social inclusivity. And then, of course, the aim of increase children awareness about the adequate and proper food portions according to their needs. So I will provide an overview of the research activities that we carried out within the Strength to Food project in 5 European countries, which are UK, beside Italy, Greece, Croatia, and Serbia. We selected a total of 10 food procurement models that were defined. So among them, we defined 4 models: the low-cost, the local organic, and the local organic models. And this definition have been given based on the analysis of the contract tendering stipulated between the municipality and the schools, the primary schools that were the case studies we considered. The low cost is the contract that evaluate more the price and cost instead of other qualitative criteria, such as the geographical proximity, which is instead really considered in the local model, or we have the organic model that evaluate more the production method used for purchasing foods, school foods to do for the school meals. The final one integrate both local and organic, and as you can see from the map, actually at least one of these 2 case studies selected in each country is a low-cost model. The unique exception is represented by Italy. In that case, we selected Parma and Lucca as the 2 case studies, and one Parma is the local organic, while Lucca is the organic model. And we can say that these last three models, so the local organic and local organic, actually better applied the number 24 European directive referred to 2014, as in that case, we have this statement that public contract should be awarded on the sole basis of the best price-quality ratio, not considering only just the price and the cost of products. And this should be the criterion used to select the most economically advantageous tender in public awarding. And if we have a look in particular to the Parma local organic model, we found that not only for this municipality but also for other municipalities in Italy, the proposed school menus are drawn up in accordance with national, regional and also local guidelines that provide specific indications, references for the energetic and nutrient content of the school meals, considering also the adequate frequency of consumption for different food groups and categories. According to the regional law, we know that organic foods, products which are coming from integrated cultivation and also typical and traditional products should represent at least the 70% of the purchased product. And we know that also, when available on the market, organic products should be preferred. The local contracts are quite detailed in terms of the length of the supply chains, considering the distance between the geographical origin of food and the municipality. However, in the contract of Parma, we don't know exactly, we don't have a specific cutoff for the local food which is supplied. Moreover, we have also a quite broad definition about local food. Indeed, in the contract tender, we have this definition, which is local food, which means food provided, produced within the Parma province. Then we have also 0 kilometer products, which are those products produced at a maximum of 100 kilometers from Parma, and also products coming from assured supply chains. In this case, we are referring to products that are produced in a province which is adjacent to Parma province, even outside Emilia-Romagna. These are the characteristics of primary school menus in Parma. They have a rotatory structure based on 4 weeks, so it means that after 1 month they are repeated. They are differentiated according to 4 seasons to respect the seasonality of fruit and vegetables. And another important characteristics, and on these, we try to develop our smartphone application, and which is based on this characteristic, is that they are decided at the beginning of the school year, with the exception of the specific, for example, fruit and vegetables that, of course, are established according to the availability. Overall, we can say that preference is given to healthy cooking methods, considering, for example, baking, steaming, stewed cooking, but also, of course, as we said before, fresh and seasonal products obtained with eco-friendly production methods. Mainly organic products are preferred. They include also products which are regulated by European legislation, so we are talking about certified geographical indications, and also, of course, traditional and local foods. Now I just move on considering the tasks and deliverables accomplished by the project. We, together with other partners within Strong to Food, which are Barilla, the University of Belgrade, and EUFIC, prepare a set of educational material that were aimed at reinforce children's healthy eating habits, considering different topics, so healthy eating behaviors, healthy diet principles, but also sustainability issues. For example, the double pyramid or the issues related to food waste. And all these educational materials have been told to target different actors, as we need to reach the whole school community, so not only the children, but also the teacher, the families, of course. So we need to consider a community, the whole community. And it is worth mentioning that these resources are freely available on the Strength to Food website. So they can be downloaded from it. Here you can see the structure of this material. So they were provided to support school meal and nutrition initiatives, to improve nutritional intake, eating behaviors, dietary patterns of children and their families, and they were aimed at different actors. And in particular, 5 main packages have been produced referring to 5 main pillars, which are adequate hydration, healthy eating behaviors, considering, for example, the proper meal composition and distribution within the day and the week, inspired by the healthy eating plate provided by Harvard University, for example. Then we have to consider the optimal meal atmosphere during meal consumed at school, but also at home, smart shopping, and also food seasonality and food sustainability, mainly related to the double pyramid, as I said, and also the waste issues. And all of these material are have been created in English, but of course they can be edited to allow translation in other languages. Here you can see some examples of them. So we prepare booklets that are addressed to children, but also to teachers and parents. Games that can be played, of course, in classroom with the other children, and teacher, but also at home, because we have to enhance learning outcomes. So we need to improve improve teaching. Also take-home leaflets, which are addressed to children and their families, and posters that can be used not only in the classroom, but also at home, and in particular in the school canteen, which is the ideal setting for providing nutrition education for children, as they are in the best place to learn about food. So also, for example, other resources like rulers and stickers have been created to keep children aware about the principles of a healthy food. And finally, we consider also cooks, because, of course, we need to provide them with an adequate skills to prepare healthy food, which should be also good for the sensorial point of view. So 45 school meals have been prepared together with 5 videos to promote a healthy food school environment, considering also different age ranges from 5 to 11 and also from 11 to 14 years. In particular, with the collaboration with Barilla, and these kind of deliverables was addressed to, in particular, Serbian children. Now I'm going to present the application that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, which is NUBI. NUBI means literally nutrition for children. As I said, it is currently used in Parma. It is being taught and addressed to families having children, providing some proposals, some suggestions about, in particular, dinner, considering what children eat at school. And starting from this existing application, during the Strength to Food project, we provided some mock-ups named NUBI Parma Strength to Food to develop a potential application for families, integrating also the Strength to Food educational resources that we prepared. And in particular, just to mention that this application was elaborated with the collaboration with the Municipality of Parma, the Artificial Intelligence Laboratory of the University of Parma, and Madigus, which started as a spin-off of the University of Parma, which consider food and nutrition education. NUBI, so how it works. Later we will have a demonstration of its functionalities. However, I just say that Nubi suggests different options for the meals that are not eaten at school, but it considers it to provide and to suggest a healthy balanced menus for the whole day and also the whole week, as it considers, for example, previous, present, and current, and also next week, to allow also the possibility to allow the possibility to consider the shopping. So it is very important also for this. And the meals respect the culinary, the gastronomic tradition, and also, of course, the seasonality of fruit and vegetables, considering that they need to be compliant with nutritional recommendations, considering also guidelines from the region and also from the ministry. And the final aim of the app is specifically the reduction of the intake of simple sugars and also trying to increase the consumption of fruit and vegetables, legumes and whole grains in this particular population, which is represented by school children. So here you can see a demonstration of the app and its functionalities. I don't know if I can make. No, yes, I think you need to just to click on it on the smartphone. There is a video. I don't know if you can reach. No? Ah, okay. There was a practical demonstration in which I just was showing how it works. So I don't know. He said that you can just click on the part of the smartphone. No, it's not possible. Okay. I can say that. Just a few minutes, but so you can see actually how it works, not just saying me.
Okay. Anyway, it's free, so you can download and look. Yes, it actually is only in Italian because we developed for it.
For dinner, for children who are eating the school lunch at school, the lunch at school, and there are some suggestions. For example, okay, is not this okay? Okay, it's PowerPoint, not PDF. Okay, so I'm just finishing to say that, of course, this kind of app is very useful for families as they consider as I said, they consider the current week, the next week, the previous week. So there is an overview also of the scheduling of the school meals for children, and so families can establish also the kind of the shopping they need to do. And of course, we have different sections that are available on the app, just about saying which is the proper target user, the ideal target user, some information about the project, and also, of course, we have to consider also the scientific basis that have been used to develop this app. As I mentioned, the ministerial guidelines and also local guidelines that I mentioned before. And also just a quick information is that when you access the for time, you need to make a configuration of the child, providing some information about the nickname, so no personal data relating to the real name of the child is recorded on the app, and all of the information recorded are just used for scientific purposes and local projects about food education. So, yes, the final slide, yes. Okay, I can, no, because this is fixed, I think. Okay. So just some take-home messages. Strength of food education have been talked to consider different nutritional topics, considering also sustainability considerations related mainly to food waste. We can say that the combination of nutritional educational strategies target to a multitude of actors with a healthy food environment is, of course, an integrated approach used to trigger effective behavioral changes towards healthy and sustainable practices. And of course, these educational resources have been developed based on this strategy to help children and their families to follow a sustainable and healthy diets. The last recommendation that we can do is that the combination of frontal and non-frontal lessons can have the most effective learning outcomes for this kind of population, of course. So we need to integrate them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bea.
Thank you.
Brava Bea, I have already
Download. Okay.
Very good.
Perfect.
It is,
Okay,
it can
I don't know
be
if you have
used
some
just in
question.
Parma, but it's okay.
But
Mary,
yes,
one plus one. It is a really interconnected also
Exactly.
my presentation.
yes,
Yeah, yes.
all the
So,
present.
my question is about personalized nutrition. It's something which is already fell down, or we have still someone thinking about personalization of nutrition?
So-
Because, you know, if you are teaching children
Yeah.
in a way that everybody will eat the same, then means that...
No, allora, this kind of issue, for example, I referring to the work that we have done for example, for the application. And of course, now the application target only healthy children, for example, who don't have specific illnesses, metabolic illnesses, or religious food preferences. And this is quite a need for to personalize, in that sense, the application, also considering other groups. So in that sense, we can make some improvements to make the application also effective for other kind of children. Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beatrice. Okay. Next presentation, Prof. Dr. Simone Maccaferri from University of Bologna. No, I give you time to move. Maybe
Just in time for the change of presentation. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Simone Maccaferri. I'm responsible for the agri-food and bioeconomy team at the European Research Office at the University of Bologna. Now we have seen a number of different European projects, regional projects that has been developed in the university of our region. We will move to a presentation that will showcase a number of different projects that has been funded by the European Commission, and we will look a bit about what are the main policies in the food systems European funding for the next years. So there is still quite an emphasis for the food and bioeconomy funding in the framework program Horizon Europe. There is 10 billion euros of funding for research in the cluster 6, food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture and environment. About 1/3 is related to food sector and food system. And the food sector and food system will be funded not only through classical work program in the cluster, but also through new instruments that has been for purpose developed by the European Commission, that are the partnerships and the missions. there will be one mission about soil health for healthy food production, and 2 partnerships, one on agroecology and one on food systems, that are very important and are very interlinked in order to provide valuable impacts for the European research in the field of food sector. It is very critical that the development of a European partnership for safe and sustainable food system, and this will integrate a number of different activities that has been funded by a number of different instruments so far, from JPIs, Eranet, Prima, and it will connect all what is a different scenario of national, regional, and European funding schemes in order to provide impact for a really connected food system in Europe. Restoring the European ecosystem and biodiversity, managing sustainably national resources for food security, and cleaning and providing a healthier environment is one of the key strategic orientation of the European Commission in the Horizon Europe, and there is one entire stream of action related to farm-to-fork strategy. The so-called destination farm-to-fork will gather all topics, all calls that will found European research in the sector of farm-to-fork, so food system, providing impact in 3 different areas of intervention. Farming systems, so mainly the production, fisheries and aquaculture, and food system as more transformation and consumption. So there is a huge interlink between production, consumption, and emerging sectors of intervention like the blue economy, in order to try to develop always healthier and more sustainable foods that will provide also equitable access to the foods for the population of the world. The farm-to-fork strategy has been adopted last year, so we are in World Food Day in these days. So it is very important to talk about farm-to-fork strategy, because it will gather all the targets and enablers of the European policies in the food sector. It will gather primary producer, it will gather industries, government, actors of research and innovation, funding authorities, private sector providing access to finance, cities and local authorities that also, as Beatrice showed before, are very important actors in the deployment of territorial bioeconomy and territorial food system projects. We go a bit more into detail on what has been done by the University of Bologna in the last 7 years related to European research projects in the food sector. We are proud to have more than 21 million euro of projects funded in the last 7 years, with more than 50 projects funded. And we are the first university in Italy and the 4th in Europe for capacity of attracting European funds. Summing up Horizon 2020 and the Prima project, we reach almost 25 million euro. These are the projects that are coordinated by researchers at the University of Bologna, and you can see there is a quite diverse portfolio of projects that are spanning from food production to blue growth and innovation in European aquaculture, agricultural economics, bio-based industries, research in the education sectors, microbiomes, authenticity, plant health. So it's a quite diverse portfolio. And thinking about what will be the major trends in Horizon Europe, I tried to put together a few slides about a couple of trends that will be very important and can be linked to some projects that we are currently developing. One trend is a city-region food system. That is one of the major trends in bioeconomy research scenario. Cities are very important. The linkages between the rural areas and the urban areas are really what can make the difference in the next years, and can couple not only food security and nutrition, but also all the economical part related to the food, the resilience and the sustainability of the ecosystems, the biodiversity, the social inclusion and the equity of the people. So improving the access to food is really important, and the way we can do it is by improving the linkages between the rural and the urban territories. We recently developed a project that is called Foodie, that is a food approach to sustainable city-region food systems, and we are coordinating it, and it is working on 3 major objectives. Impact on the income of the producer and the job opportunities of the primary producer and the farmers, promote more resilient and inclusive society, and reduce the contribution of the city-region food system to climate change. We need to increase the access to affordable, safe and nutritious foods in the European citizens, engage more actively the citizen into the city-region food system and in the way they purchase food and the way they think about how the consumption can make really a difference in the entire food system, promoting social and technological innovation, and also linking citizens to decision makers in order to promote more sustainable consumption and production policies. I will skip this slide because I don't want to be too boring. But you can see in these slides the food supply chain and the diets that are the 2 main aspects that we discussed in the previous presentation are just 2 small parts of a much broader scenario in which the urban policies and the different determinants that are not only related to the food system are really having an important role. These food system dynamics are very difficult to be understood in a coherent way, but providing food supply chains that is impacting positively the food environment and is empowering the consumer in order to make a sustainable and healthier behavior, in order to have a diet that is impacting positively in the health of the citizen, and at the same time also a positive social, economical and environmental impact is the way in order to make the circle continuing going on, not only for a few years more or a few decades more, but lasting for a lot of centuries. Another important element of this city-region food system is the thematic of waste management, and the integrated urban food policies cannot avoid to take the urban food waste management, because it is not only a matter of creating values from food waste, but also important to understand how to decrease the food wastage by people, but also by food industry, and not only food industry. Another strategic area is the microbiome, but Patrizia Brigidi already explained very well what is the Circle project and how the microbiome research is very important and has been very important in the last 5 years and will be very important in the next framework program. Then there is other areas that are extremely interesting and can be continued as protagonists in the Horizon Europe. For example, smart and short chain are very important. The smart chain and the co-fresh projects has been 2 projects in which the University of Bologna was partner and promoted the development of short food supply chain, more sustainable, more local, more healthier, and also able to put together all the actors of the agri-food value chain in order to promote that multi-actor approach that also Beatrice introduced in the project before. Fit for Food 2030 has been a very interesting coordination and support action in which the University of Bologna contributed as partner and contributed to the development of the Farm to Fork strategies and the Food 2030 agenda. And we played a small role, but it was very important in order to develop policy and food system actors' engagement into the co-development of the Food 2030 agenda, and this will be the basis for the next food partnership. Then there are other areas that can be of extreme interest, for example, the valorization and transformation of biomass. These 4 projects are 4 different examples of how contributing to develop value from waste is extremely important and can happen at different levels of the value chain. The Prolific project is a BBI project, is bio-based industries, and aims at developing new value chains from proteins, polyphenols, chitosan, fibers, in order to transform agro-industrial residues in food, animal feed, packaging, and cosmetic sector biomaterials. The NOAVU project is a project that is applying the same methodologies but to agricultural waste and losses. The Refresh project is a project that is aiming to tackle and address the determinants of creation of food and reduce the avoidable waste that is produced by consumer and by the industries. And the Low in Food project is aimed to reduce the food loss and food waste at the European level, mostly at farmers and in farms. Last slide that I want to show you is related to an experience that we have recently embraced, that is the European Bioeconomy University. We have now talked of research. Francesca later will talk about education. This can be the merge between the presentation that we had before, my presentation about broader policy of funding, and what Francesca will tell about an experience in the education. Because trying to connect more and more research, knowledge transfer, technology transfer, and education is important in order to provide really impactful education for professionals of tomorrow, but also to respond to the needs of skills and the demand for skills by the industries in the bioeconomy sector. So this is an experience that we recently developed with other 6 European universities and will provide in the next years results in the education and research sectors. Times change, we have to adapt, we have to change with the time, and the cooperation that we will embrace also at the regional level with all our universities, I think, will be very important in order to respond to the challenges that are ahead of us at the European level, but also at the global level. Thank you. So now I present you because otherwise it's difficult. So we finish with Francesca Scazzina by University of Parma. So thank you for hosting and organizing all the activities of today. And now the floor is yours.
Thank you. So thank you. Since we have to change with the time, is quite late, and so I want to be quick and painless like Simone. No, okay. Now my presentation is on education, so we conclude with education. Yes. È 3 ore? Okay. Thank you. We conclude with education. I'm going to present the School of Advanced Studies on Food and Nutrition of University of Parma. University of Parma is one of the oldest university, and is a multidisciplinary university, but the School of Advanced Study has been founded like 3 years ago in consideration of importance of food and nutrition for university itself. So the mission of the school is transfer knowledge. The idea of school is offers many high qualified educational paths in developing professional figure in the food sector. The area, the field of interest of this educational path is food safety and quality, nutrition, law and policy, economy, and food processing. And we have a scientific committee, one academic scientific committee, one of our professors for each area. And, but we also an advisory board. We have also an advisory board with organization, institution, and the public and private companies, focusing in, the idea is to submit proposal in the food sector, new proposal. Where we have different place venue of the school, two more representative, it's in the city center, and two more scientific. We have one in ex Palazzo della Provincia in the city center of Parma. And by the end of this year, we are going to move to the Camera di San Paolo, Complesso di San Paolo. It's an old monastery, ancient monastery. It was recently restored. And there is also with a very prestigious, because there are also Correggio frescoes. And there is the headquarters of Parma City of Gastronomy, since Parma gained the recognition of UNESCO ex-City of Gastronomy. The other two less representative, more scientific venue are one within the food project at the city, the university campus, where the scientific department are, and the food project collect all the research in the food area. Another one is the food business incubator with startup and spin-off of University of Parma linked always to food. The activity or the school are different. So we have CISO school, postgraduate specialization, PhD school, first and second level postgraduate masters, workshop and seminar, and also courses for companies and research project. I am going to present you some example of this activity. I will start with one international summer school in food sustainability, made in thanks to the financial support of Region Emilia-Romagna. This summer has been the second edition. Another summer school is in collaboration with EFSA, is on food safety aspect of integrated food system. Is not only for postgraduate students, but also for academics or like European agency, NGOs. The other kind of activity, for example, this one is the Yakult Academy, is for in nutrition communication, is for the dietitian or nutritionist that want to improve your, the idea to is to how better to transfer knowledge and communicate using social media, since social media are now used also for education, but there are also a lot of fake news on the social media. Another one is beside the PhD school in food science, the new proposal. We hope it will be okay, and we will have the support, the financial support of Region Emilia-Romagna. Is the courses for PhD school student in collaboration with University of Bologna, University of Modena Reggio Emilia, and Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore. Then I moved to the master. There is for example, this is a first level master. I care a lot because I'm president of this master, with the support of Regione Emilia-Romagna in collaboration with city municipality, because is in the context, in the framework is of City of Gastronomy. The idea is to form a manager specialized in the food culture, like keep connection among institutions, organizations, small medium enterprise, and all people working in the like in the food chain of local product in the urban context linked to the city. In the we are in the faculty. We are also a professor from other city of gastronomy. We have Denia with Università Alicante, in Spain. So we have also Bergen in Norway with the University of Bergen, and we have Östersund in Sweden with Mid Sweden University. For example, there are also some courses for food company. This one is with a JBT, technical school. The idea is an advanced course on thermal and thermal treatment for microbiological stabilization in the food industry. I think I am at the last example. This is, for example, for the research project, University of Parma joined the EU4A project. Is a European Food Risk Assessment Fellowship Program with EFSA. We have ongoing 2 fellowships, one in nutrition and one in risk assessment. And the idea, the aim of these 2 fellowships is the evaluation of changes in terms of risk benefits of shifting diet towards healthier and more sustainable dietary models. So if you're interested in one of these courses, I am talking also to the student here, you can visit the website of the school. This is my email contact. Thank you all of you for your kind, also hosting you us here. Thank you.